Okay, good morning. So we're going to continue with our module 2, okay, single area. Okay, so 2.2.4 section na modifying the single area OSPF. Okay, so we have what we call a metric of cost. So cost is usually the cost of the path of the route from point A to point B. Okay, so routing protocols use a metric to determine the best path, okay, across the network. So it uses the cost of or the value of the speed links between the interfaces and the path that goes to the destination. Cisco cost of interface is inversely proportional to the bandwidth interface. So therefore, the higher bandwidth indicates a lower cost. So the formula here for the OSPF cost is usually the reference bandwidth divided by the interface bandwidth. Okay, so the default reference bandwidth is 10 to the power of 8. Okay, or therefore the formula is usually 100 million bps divided by the interface bandwidth in bps. Because OSPF cost value must be in integer, so fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, and the 10G in Ethernet interfaces share the same cost. So to correct the correct situation, you can adjust the reference bandwidth with autocost reference bandwidth command, which is OSPF router. So manually set the OSPF cost with the IP OSPF cost command on the necessarily interfaces. Okay, so if you have a latest or newer versions iOS, usually updated na nilang cost reference. Okay, so I think our reference here resource is based on the older version, katong version 12, mga version na iOS. Okay. So later mga iOS like 15, they're already being updated with the reference cost for the higher bandwidth. Okay, so this is the reference table for breakdown of the cost calculation. So if you have a 10 gig Ethernet interface, okay, so usually have the cost of 0.011. Okay, you have also 1 gig. This is the old table siya, katong version 12. You have 1 gig is equivalent to 100 million Mbps rate. Uh, Reference nato is 100 million divided by this is around 1 billion. That is equal to 1. That 1. Okay. You have the fast Ethernet, which is 100 Mbps, which is equal to 1. Okay. Also, we have 10 Mbps Ethernet, which is equal to also 1. Okay. So as you can see, the same cost due to reference bandwidth. Okay. Before, dili mo gani siya mo yung standard. Usually, ang standard sa online is just 10 Mbps, 2 Mbps, and 100. Okay. So the cost value must be integer. If something else than the integer is calculated, OSPF rounds up the nearest integer. So therefore, the cost nila is the same with 1 equal to 1. For this reason, all interfaces faster than fast internet will have the same cost value of 1. So to assist the OSPF in making the correct path determination, we need to change the reference bandwidth. Okay. So changing the reference bandwidth does not actually affect the bandwidth capacity. It just changes your how your devices or router calculates the cost. Okay, the cost of path. Okay, was based sa iyang interface. Okay, so this command must be configured on every router in OSPF domain. So uh, notice the command that value is expressed in Mbps, which is adjusted into what we call auto cost reference bandwidth to 1000. Okay, if we're referring to 1 uh, gigabit Ethernet or 1000 Mbps. Okay, for 10 gig na Ethernet, you need to have a 10,000 cost reference bandwidth. Okay, so to return to the default reference bandwidth, you can use the auto cost reference bandwidth to 100 command. So another option is to change the cost of one specific interface using IPOSPF cost command. So whichever method is used, it is important to apply the configuration to all routers in OSPF routing domain. Okay? So, pwede na to nimo di apilon ang katong nag-face or katong naka-passive interface atong OSPF or those who are facing to the LAN. Okay? But if you're facing to router with adjacency with OSPF, mo na to kailangan mo i-configure. Okay, so the table shows on the OSPF cost if the reference bandwidth is to adjusted to accommodate 10 gig. The reference bandwidth should be adjusted anytime there is a link faster than the fast internet. Okay, so it is a great idea. Later on, there will be new bandwidth, mga standard na ibang bandwidth like 40 gig, 100 gig. So later, manggawas na siya. So it's better to use that reference bandwidth nimo would be the highest sa tanan nimo mga routers interface. So pinakataas ang router interface na ay pinakataas ang bandwidth mo na yung gamiton nimo as your reference bandwidth. Okay, para makorek ang iyong cost. So kato sa mga lower bandwidth, so mataas ang iyong cost. So the calculation between the path would be more accurate to the best path. Okay? So mo na say sometimes reason na sometimes the best path is not really the actual best path good. Okay. So to accumulate the cost, assuming that auto cost reference bandwidth is 10,000, okay, command has been configured in all three routers. Okay. The cost of the link between each router is now 10. The loopback reference have a default cost of 1. Okay. So you have here a gigabit. Okay, gigabit link router 2 to router 1. We also have here gigabit link. So all of them have a gigabit link between the three routers. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the loopback interfaces have what we call default cost of 1. Okay, so it won't matter what would be your this is just your sa tawag na virtual interface. Okay. So, in actual, okay, magdepende sa imong interface connection. Okay, if we have a LAN here. But in this case, we have a loopback. Okay, default niya would be 1. So, you can calculate the cost of each router to reach each network. So, example, from R1 to reach the LAN diri sa tong router 2, the 10.10.2.0. Okay, so you have here the cost of 10, then plus 1. Okay, so that is a total of 11. Okay, if you're going to use the other route, you have here 10 plus 10 plus 1, that is 21. So this would be the best path going to this network na 10.10.2 that network from router 1. Okay, this this has a cost of 21. But in this case, that this link will go down, okay, automatically, most of the yan gamiton, okay. So verifying the accumulated cost for the path for the 10.10.2.0 network, you have here command show IP route, okay. Under show IP route, which includes the 10.10.2.0, the network, whereas we're just displaying this route. Okay, so you have here your cost, metric cost. This is your administrative value. This is the cost, and via from which you're going to hop to the next network. Okay, this is the outgoing interface. This is your time. This route has been discovered or added. Okay, show IP route 10.10.2.0. You have routing entry known as PF10. Okay, this is your distance 110. The mid cost you have 11. Type area was updated from the 10.1.1.6 to the interface port 0. Okay. So here, makita na balik diri. This is usually your, when you do the show IP route, money mo metric. This is the administrative distance. If you're going to show IP route, specific this route, okay, you have here the specific word good na route metric is 11. Okay. So that's how we're going to verify the cost between the route of that network. So reason to manually set the cost value, which is first is the administrator want to influence the path selection within the OSPF, causing different path to be selected than what is normally would be given default cost and cost accumulation. So connection to equipment from other vendors who use different formula to calculate also the cost. Okay, if we have a mixed type of mga routers, but still, okay. you want to mostly ang main reason gan is to influence is if you want as administrator you want to specify the specific path kay na unsay gamiton primarily. Okay, but still you still have your other route, okay, for redundancy. To change the cost value reported by local OSPF router to OSPF routers, use the interface configuration command na IP OSPF, then cost value. You have here under sa interface, okay, specific interface na gigabit 001, okay, IP OSPF cost is 30, okay. That is for the interface 1 sa router 1. Okay, under sa interface loopback, okay, ISPS cost is 10. So what happened the link if the link of R1 and R2 goes down? So you can simulate that by shutting down the gigabit interface and verifying that the routing table is updated to use the router 3. Okay, so in this scenario, you're going to test the failover route. Okay, so let's see our quandary. Okay, ang atong topology. Okay, so you have here your best FAT for router 1 to 10.10.2.0 network, which is router 1 to router 2. In case that the the interface or the link between R1 and R2 goes down, supposedly dapat mo ni siya iyang gamiton or mo ni siya mo register sa iyang routing table. Okay, just to test the failover. Okay, so shut down, we assume that rin natin di shut down ang isa ka interface. Okay, when you do the show IP route OSPF and begin under sa 10, okay, the 10 network, as you can see here, 10.10.2 network, you have here the metric cost is 50, which is mas taas na kaysa itong previous, but ang imong via ni for the next hop would be the different router na. Okay, instead of router 2, this would be the router 3. And the outgoing interface would be different set. Okay. Okay. So not only for the 10.10.2.0 network, but also all other routes will be also updated. Okay, but in this case, we have to emphasize that as we use this reference na route na 10.10.2.0, it should be going to the router number 2, but this is the IP of the router number 3. Okay. So OSPF hello packets are transmitted to what we call the multicast address, the 2 to 4. This is a special address which is reserved for mga dynamic communication. Okay, so all OSPF routers usually in every second, 10 seconds. This is default timer value of multi-access and point-to-point networks. So every 10 seconds, it will going to transmit hello packets. Okay, it doesn't mean na mag-send hello packets to initialize. This is usually kind of itong pag-detect lang na your communication between neighbor agency is still active. Okay, so in case that the router doesn't receive hello packet, usually what will happen once ito ako nato ng kuan usually down ang atong link unable to respond with the network adjacency with the neighboring router. So that will muna siya mo detect sa ato ang downtime between links sa atong router. Okay. So dead interval is a period that the router waits to receive a hello packet before declaring a neighbor is down. Okay, so dead interval wala siya ka-receive o hello packet o SPF. Okay, so if a dead interval expires before the router receives hello packet, so OSPF removes the neighbor router from its link database. So the router floods the LSDB with information about down neighbor all out to the other enabled interfaces. Okay. So CISCO uses default 4 times hello interval. So this is 40 seconds on the multicast and a point-to-point networks. Okay. So going back again sa itong origin, this goes down, okay, then itong router 1 detects did not receive any hello packet from the router 2, okay, it would going to broadcast to the port number 1. So padung sa itong router number 3 that this link is down. Okay. Same side diri, since maka-receive siya, mag-broadcast na siya patong dito. Okay? It doesn't broadcast to the loopback because usually this is your end. That loopback. So it only forwards it to the to to the link that have adjacency. with other routers. Okay. Question so far? Verify hello and dead intervals. Okay, so OSPF hello and dead intervals are configurable per interface spaces. So OSPF interval must match or a neighbor adjacency does not occur. Okay, so mag-mismatch sila o unsay ang timing. So kailangan pareha gina sila between link. Sample router 1, router 2, ilang link between is katong port number 1 and port number 0 sa router 2 should have the same hello and dead intervals. Okay, to verify currently configured OSPF interface interval, you can do show IP OSPF interface. From that interface, show IP OSPF interface gigabit. From that interface, we have here the hello and the dead interval. Okay. So usually this is the default, which is 10, and the default is 40. Okay, so wait time niya is 40 based sa atong dead interval. Okay, should have the same value with the other end, which is linked to this interface. The show IPO SPF neighbor command also see the time dead time counting down from 40 seconds. By default, this value is refreshed every 10 seconds when R1 receives a hello from a neighbor. Okay, as you can see here, this is the time. Okay, show IPO SPF neighbor. Okay, okay, so this is ko na kanang counting padong down to zero. Okay, so as you can see, bago pa siya ka-respond. Okay, 35, 31. So it may be desirable to change the OSPF timer so that routers detect network failures in less time. So doing this increases traffic. Sometimes the need for quick convergence is more important than an extra traffic it creates. Okay, so remember when you send hello packets, okay, so even though sa multicast niya, it uses the same interface. So it also consume bandwidth resource on that interface link between two routers. Okay, so pwede yung best practice yun is usually para mas dali ang convergence, okay? Dili ka abot og 40 seconds before person down, okay? Before down na siya, 40 seconds, murag dako na siyang timeout, di ba? Okay, so pwede na to siya ma-lessen. Okay, so we can configure the OSPF hello interval and also the dead interval of under ni siya sa interface. Okay, so remember when you do this, you need to also set the other end set. Okay, okay, so uh, giving command the IP space OSPF space hello dash interval, the number of seconds you want to send hello intervals. Okay. Also for the dead interval, as you can see here. Okay. So use the no IP OSPF hello interval and no IP OSPF dead interval command to reset the interval to default. Okay. Or if you want to overlap lang instead of just 10, or you can also do overlapping with the default value. Okay, so in this example, the hello interval for the link between R1 and R2 is changed to 5. So Cisco or iOS automatically modifies the dead interval 4 times the hello interval. However, you can document the new dead interval in the configuration by manually setting it to 20. So here, you have here, it's an interface gigabit port 0, IP OSPF hello interval to 5, IP OSPF dead interval to 20 seconds. So automatically it would change. Okay, as you can see here, uh, there will be a notification. Okay, that change the gigabit interface to full to down, then neighbor to down. Okay, so nganong nindown man, nindown na atong adjusted siya ni because we have changed our interface hello and dead interval. So it needs to have the same set speed as n. Okay. Okay, question.
And so far, sir.
Okay, so we'll continue with the next chapter with section. I mean section. Here we have our default route propagation. So default route is like a default route from one router, which is imo is i-advertise, ipa-add mo sa other routers na mo sa naslay lang default route. Okay. So to propagate the default route, Okay, you know what is default route, no? So when you do the show IP route, usually you have all the routes available there, okay? Or all known networks that are assigned to all other routers or the members of OSPF. Okay. So the default route is usually kaning term na IP route 000 or IP route na ini which is the same as la all technical aspects sa default route ha. When you say default route, it is your last resort or that is your route if nothing matches with your previous mga kuan mo. Nasa mo routing table, okay? So any unknown destination will be put up sa imong default route or forwarded dito sa default route, okay? So a default static route using the IP route 000 or that space 000 command usually is your default route sa imong router, okay? Sa switches, you can do IP default route as your default route, but sa router, ang gamiton nato is kaning IP route then any. Okay, so the default information originate router configuration command. This will instruct your router to be the source of the default route information and propagate the default static route in OSPF update. So in our topology diagram, R2 is configured as the loopback. Okay, loopback sa atong maliko na to ha. Okay. So we have a loop back here which is mag-simulate ta na mo ni padung sa atong internet. So sa atong area usually that is not a part of our OSPF routing. But our router 2 has another route that goes out to the area 0 na network. So this route or this connection simulated to connection to the internet can be also propagated with the router 1 and router 2. Okay, na mahimo ng default route nila padong dito sa router 2, same size sa router 3. Okay, so any beyond, let's say we have a LAN here, other network here, even though whoever the devices here that is connected to this LAN or this loopback usually have this default route sa router 1. Okay, so ang atong LAN is different na yung default route from atong router 1. So router 1, the default route would be router 2. Router 3 would default route would be router 2. Okay, because this one would be going to advertise that it goes through R2 ang atong default route. Okay. Okay. So we have here the interface loopback 1 IP address is 64.100.0.1. This is your interface loopback. Simo router number 2. Okay. After that, IP route. Okay. Balik ta sa global IP route. Then any. Then ang atong outgoing interface is the loopback 1. Kani atong di-create diri. Okay. So router OSPF 10. Okay. Adto ta sa atong process ID na OSPF. Okay. We have here command na default dash information originate, which means mo ni siya kani atong default route na na-assign sa atong router 2 would be forwarded also to router 1 and other routers, and diri mag-originate or through the router 2 mo pass through ang atong default route to outside. Okay. So kanira siya importante na part na mag-add nimo. Okay, you need to add this after adding the default route. Okay. So you can verify the default route on the R2 by showing show IP route. And here, as you can see here, S dash asterisk, you have the default route is directly connected to loopback 1. Okay. Going to the R2, R1, okay, show IP route. Okay. Under sa IP route table, under sa OSPF, na kay valid to na A2. Okay. So that means that is originate from other routers from the OSPF. Okay, so you have here the any destination 000. Okay, administrative distance is 1. Okay, via the 10.1.1.6. This is your next hop na router, which is your router 2. Okay, so this has been this is your timer. Okay, and you have your exiting interface. Okay, so section, any question so far? Check, so we have upcoming pocket tracer activity after this. I think we have to finish lang sa siguro before. Uh, wait. Okay, so let's continue. This is the last section of chapter 2. So verifying the single area OSPF. So commands that were useful to not only just to verify OSPF but also to troubleshoot and trace on your OSPF configuration. Okay, so verify OSPF neighbors. Okay, after configuring single area, you will need to verify your configuration. So two commands that are particularly useful is the show IP interface brief and also the show IP route. For the interface brief, this will verify that the desired interface are active and with correct addressing. Show IP route, this verifies that the route tables contains all expected routes. Okay, so if ever any show IP route nimo, ang gawas na route nimo is just your direct connection, okay? And also your dubak, okay, pasabutan na you don't have the adjacency with other OSPF routers. Okay, you can also do the show IP interface brief. Sometimes this could be kind of bitong di na mo magamit because usually it provides the interface information of your router interface. Okay? Sometimes na mo diri ang problema. Wala na misconfigure na to ang atong router sa atong interface address, okay, or basic mo network. That's why there will be uh, sometimes ini troubleshoot mo dito mo tanaw dito sa mga OSPF route, okay? Wala dito ang problema. Sakto ra tanan ang settings but sometimes malimtan ang atong interface pag-check. Okay? So it's also very important. Okay. Additional commands to determine that OSPF is operating as expected, including the show IP OSPF neighbor. Appeals OSPF will be seen here. Show IP protocols also. Show IP OSPF. It will show the OSPF information. Possible show the routers interface that are a part of the OSPF area. Okay. The show IP OSPF neighbor command will verify that the router has form adjacency. Okay, so you can see here, show IP OSPF neighbor. There are two routers that provides adjacency with our router. Okay, so we have here the neighbor ID, which is your router ID. You have the 3333 and also the 222. Okay, so you have here a timer. You have 35 and 31 seconds. You have the address of that router ID. This is, I think this is 3 and this is 2. Okay, 10.1.1.6. This is the outgoing interface on which they are being connected. Okay, so if ever one router is not seen here, so wala mo naka-provide og adjacency from that router. Okay, so two routers may not form an OSPF adjacency if the following occurs. Okay, subnet does not match. So katong sa interface information, mo ito kailangan mo itanaw. Okay, interface brief causing the router to be in separate networks. Okay, so dapat between links, okay, example, the interface sa to ang kuan, whatever between the links sa atong router should be belong to the same network. Okay, if ever sila mag-same network, they would not see between the two links directly connected things. Next is the hello and dead timers that has matched. Okay, so if we have We have adjusted our hello timers and dead timers. Okay, it should match with the other end na sa connect. Okay, so it is best practice that you should have the same hello and dead timers for all throughout your area. Okay, kay pwede man dili tanan. Okay, pwede ra katulong magatubang. Okay, katulong between routers direct. For example, router 1 to router 2 and the router 1 to router 3 would be different hello and dead timers. Pwede naman. Okay. So the using or incorrect OSPF network command. Okay. So if any missing command network command is katong the advertisement network. Okay. Show IP protocols. Okay. So you have here OSPF process ID number. Then you have the router ID information. Okay, routing on the interface configured. Okay, this is the loopback. You have the number. Okay, so this command will display SPF version 2 area information and the last time the SPF algorithm was executed. Okay, so as I'm getting SPF, katong calculation sa atong cost, the best path. Show IP OSPF interface command provides detailed list of every OSPF enabled interfaces. Okay, show IP OSPF. Kanina naka-specify lang ta sa interface 0. Okay, as you can see here, your process ID 10, the router ID is 1111, the network type is point-to-point, and the cost is 10. So we only have two types of network type. You have the multi-access and also point-to-point. Okay, so you have a neighbor count here, 1, which is adjacent neighbor count is 1. Okay, okay. So for to point, you will expect that there's only one adjacent neighbor. Okay, except for uh, multi-access. Okay, for the multi-access, you're going to have based on the number adjusted C connect sa imong interface. Okay, so since this is a point-to-point, expected that you only have one routers to the next link. Okay, to get a quick summary of OSPF version 2 enabled interface, show IP OSPF interface brief command. Okay, you have here the interfaces are participating in OSPF. You have the loopback. Okay, you have the IP and the subnet mask of the network that are being advertised. Okay, you have the cost of each link. Okay, you have the state, state which is point to point. Okay, then you have the number of neighbors on each link. Okay, so for the loopback, what ay neighbor dito, beyond because that is a loopback or assume na that is your LAN. While these routers, because router you have also one neighbor, you also have one neighbor for the other end. Okay, okay, question. There's no question. So, okay. So sa atong activity karon, uh I think everyone is done with the first two. Okay. After this class, I want you to do the modifying of single area OSPF. Okay. Then there will be another one added here, which is for your activity tomorrow. So by the way, tomorrow is Namoy clean up day, no? Someone inform me. Is everyone joining?
Yes, sir.
Or siya tanan, no?
Yes, sir.
Or sa inyo rang department? Required good siya? Okay. So, uh, Kapoy mo sa danoy, niguman ninyo. Para next meeting lang siguro ni. Ang next two. Okay? Basta ang karon ako ipabuhat is kaning 2.4.11. Okay? Sa year level. Sa mga graduating siguro. Not sure how if sa na department. But anyway, okay, I would consider that, okay? So, clean up mo 6 a.m., mahuman mo na around 10 siguro. Kapoy niya yung lawas. So, I would not give you any activity lang, okay? So, for now, kanila ang 2.4.11 akong di-required ninyo. Okay? Then for next meeting, natay duha. Natay isa pa diri. This one and also the other one. Okay? Okay, so attendance sa takadyot. In case you don't have a mic, just say kwan ha. Start the chat. Litis, Amoro,
Amoro present, sir.
Apas, Marvin,
Apas present, sir.
Apura,
Pura present, sir.
thank you. Aison, Ken, Axel Aison, wala. James Brian Mabatuan,
Present, sir.
thank you. Bandulon, Justin, wala Bandulon. Present, no mic, thank you. Baring, Jelay,
Present, sir.
thank you. Berdon, Howard,
Verdon present.
Bermudez, Murphy, Bermudez, wala. Boha, Bulante,
Bulante present.
Kaba,
Kaba present, sir.
Kumahig Jr.,
Present, sir. Kumahig, sir. Present.
Dupla,
Dupla present, sir.
Ipe,
APA present, sir.
Staniel, Istardo, Godfrey, Fernandez,
Fernandez present, sir.
Gabasa, Godines,
Goodin present, sir.
Honyo,
Present, sir.
Honho, Honho
Present,
or
sir.
Honyo? How do we pronounce your last name?
Unjo.
Honjo, sorry ha. Honjo. Haveluna,
Havilona present, sir.
Labaho,
Labaho present, sir.
Lukmong, Mercado,
Mercado present, sir.
Gabasa is present, sorry. Lukmong is here also. Mercado, yes.
Present, sir. Mercado.
Nineria, yes. Mercado.
Niniera present, sir.
Lucia, Umpad, wala. Chia na.
Umpad, sir.
Urakoy,
Na, sir.
Urakoy, wala. Pakibot,
Present, pakibot, sir.
Perpetua, Piamonte.
Piamonte, sir, na.
Okay, naunsa man ang tingog nimo. Puras,
Wala, sir. Present.
Prohimo,
Prohemo present, sir.
thank you. Remolano,
Ramalano present, sir.
Rivera,
Present, sir.
Rosal, okay. Salido, Soliano,
Present, sir.
Tampos,
Present, sir.
and Villaver.
Present, sir.
Napay wala ha. Natay merge. Nga naabot mo 41, no? Maximum sa lab is 35. Yun sa banda. Okay. Mas Mayor, Sinisa, Dagala,
Present, sir.
thank you. Gonzales,
Present, Sir Gonzales.
Puerto.
Present, Sir Puerto.
Naiwa, natawag na? Natawag naman. Anyway, that's it for today. Any other question? So again, ang inyong activity karon is katong isa. Okay, the 2.4.11 only. Next meeting na ning isa. Okay? Or ako lang sa yung tantangon. Ako lang sa i-unview. Okay? So, thank you everyone for joining. So, have a great day tomorrow cleaning up. Okay? So, goodbye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Bye, sir.